This episode of the Cult Popture podcast was brought to you by our Patreon. If you want to tell us which films we should watch, get up to 2 extra exclusive podcasts a month, give us something to talk about in the post-credit scene at the end of each episode, or join us for our monthly movie club Zoom call where we discuss a film together, then please consider joining the cult and donating at www.patreon.com/cultpopture.
So Christchurch, Richard, is in level 3 now, which means that Uber Eats has opened back up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to Uber Eats some McDonald's at like midnight last night, but it was closed. I guess McDonald's just wasn't operating at midnight that night. And I was looking for other places to order from, and I ended up finding a place called Daddy's Diner. And I was like, what the hell is this? And you click on it, and it's like Cheerios and sauce combo. It's like real, like basic food.
Yeah.
And some Uber Eats places do like buy one, get one free, which is like an insane deal for some places. Like you get like a $13 burger for free.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things they were doing was a cheeseburger combo, buy one, get one free. And I was like, God, that's so much. I'm gonna get that. Including delivery, it was $13, which is what I would comfortably pay for dinner without Uber Eats, right? And it arrived, and it was gotta be the worst burger I've ever eaten. It was so bad. I don't understand what Daddy's Diner is. It was this dry patty. Oh my God, it was so disgusting. And I woke up today feeling very sick. And that's my preamble for this episode.
Yeah. It is worth pointing out, just to anyone listening, when you talk about Cheerios with sauce, I imagine you're not talking about the breakfast cereal, as probably a lot of people might have thought. You're talking about cocktail sausages, I believe, is what the rest of the world would call them.
Cheerios.
Cocktail weenies. We call them Cheerios. They're called Cheerios in New Zealand and Queensland. But not the rest of Australia, randomly.
There are bigger versions called Savaloys.
Yeah, Savaloys.
You don't hear Savaloys talked about a lot.
You don't, hey?
I felt like people talked about Savaloys all the time when I was a kid.
Do you know what I feel like that about?
Quicksand.
Methylated spirits.
Oh, yeah.
You
ever smelt methylated spirits?
Yeah, of course.
It's got a thing in it which makes it smell bad.
Yeah. But I feel like the only times in the last maybe 10 to 15 years, the times I've heard the terms meths or methylated spirits are only when I'm pointing out how I don't hear about it anymore.
Wow.
I feel like we used to always have a bottle of meths, you know? And, if I swear my parents would make me drink methylated spirits, and that's not true.
You don't hear about it anymore, Richard, because you finally stopped drawing on the fucking walls. So you don't need to clean it off with meths anymore.
And also, turpentine is the other one. Terps and meths.
Yeah. Welcome to the Cult Popture podcast, everybody. My name is AJ, and over here is Richard. And
or
this
terps
is
and
our
meths,
show.
as we're often called.
Yeah, bloody terps and meths. Which one's which? Yeah. I reckon I'm terps.
I've got on to be turpentine. Turpentine, yeah. If turpentine wasn't like a solvent, it would be, or whatever it is, that would be quite a beautiful girl's name. So would chlamydia.
Yeah.
If it didn't have the connotations it already has. They're both removed from context, they're both nice words.
Yeah.
But I'll be methylated spirits.
What if those words weren't what they mean? What if this is our show, everybody, where if you've been watching Disney Plus at the moment, you may see that a new MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe based show is out called What If?
Called Monsters at Work.
And the premise of What If you've never seen it, is basically it takes stories you're familiar with from the MCU and says, what if this thing happened differently? It's not always as butterfly effecty. When I first heard the show, I thought it'd be stuff like, what if someone missed this crucial moment? Some of it's just like, what if this character was that character? And it's like, okay, I'll watch that as well.
Yeah.
And it's animated, and they're about 30 minutes long or so. And we thought, what an interesting concept to apply to other properties, other film franchises, other things like that. And so this episode, the episode's called What If Other Franchises Did What Ifs? And here's how it works, Richard. We put the call out to all our listeners to suggest some what ifs, and so we've compiled them, and we picked the best ones to expand on ourselves. We're going to mention a lot of them, but certainly not all of them. Very pleased to say we're at the point where we have enough feedback from fans now that we can just flagrantly ignore some suggestions. That feels
most
like
of them.
Probably most suggestions. Specifically, I didn't add anything which was just, hey, what if the thing didn't happen? Like, what if this character didn't do the inciting incident of the story? Like, one of them was like, what if Harry Potter didn't go to Hogwarts? And it's like, well, you'd have no story. And so I tried avoiding ones like
a
that.
good what if would be like, yeah, what you did, what if Harry went to, one of the other schools, like Victor von Krum or
with a very low
Claudius,
tum.
whatever.
Harry McCleary went to Victor von Krum's school. Very New Zealand reference heavy episode.
Yeah. I don't know if he went to Fleur's school or whatever.
Yeah.
What if Harry was sent to Soviet Russia and you have a Harry Potter Red Sun situation, or if he's in America even, but not just what if Harry didn't go to Hogwarts? That's not a lot to go on. Whoever suggested that?
Yeah, fuck you.
Stop listening to the podcast.
You're banned from the podcast. So we've each picked 5 that we liked, and then there's also a few in which the person commenting did all the work for us, so we're going to read out some of them. And I've also got a couple that were just funny that we probably won't dwell on, but were good jokes. So congratulations, everybody. You made some good jokes. And so we're going to cover a lot of them, but we will specifically be going into only a couple of the ones that were suggested. So I'll go first, Richard. And the first one that I want to expand on was from our Discord. Dr. Barrel suggested, what if Jack Sparrow stabbed the heart instead of getting Will to do it? This is, of course, referring to Pirates of the Caribbean, where Davy Jones's heart in the dead man's chest. If you stab the heart, you take over the role of Davy Jones. And in the movie...
Is this not in The World's End?
It isn't, but it is the dead man's chest. It is the dead man's chest at World's End.
Too confusing.
Yeah, and in the movie, Will is dying, so they get him to stab it instead of Jack, who I think was planning to stab it. And so what if Jack stabbed it?
Because the whole thing is Jack wants eternal life, and he's been searching for ways to become immortal the whole time, but Will's about to die, so he says, well, all right, you be immortal because it's better than being dead.
Yeah, and in this version, I think I'm going to say another small thing I'm changing is Will doesn't stab the heart because he's not dying in this version. It's just everything goes according to plan, and Jack gets to stab the heart and get what he wants, all right?
I feel like that's a massive
Well, we're allowed to make those recontextualizations.
No, that's okay. It's okay.
So chiefly, I think this would give the franchise a more tangible way to go after At World's End, something it has sorely lacked since those original movies, because I think there is way more meat on the bone of following Jack Sparrow as an immortal Davy Jones kind of figure, right? I think the reason we get this with Will instead in the actual movie is because he's probably not an engaging enough of a character to see him be Davy Jones. You see him as Davy Jones briefly in the 5th film, and it's sort of like, oh yeah, he's just doing the job. Whereas the kind of the reason it works arguably for that movie is like, we like the romance that Will and Elizabeth reunite every 10 years, like that's what's attractive about it. But I think you want to see Jack as Davy Jones, and here's what I think the 36-minute episode we'd see from this alternate universe would be about. So we would see Jack as Davy Jones maybe 10, 20 years after he's stabbed the heart, and he's an experienced flying Dutchman captain, but he's diligent. He diligently ferries souls to the afterlife, which was Davy Jones's job, which he abandoned, and that's why he turned into a squid man. And so But the problem with this version of Jack Sparrow diligently ferrying souls is that he's lost his mojo, a la Austin Powers 2. We no longer recognize him as Jack Sparrow, the quirky character that we all know and love. But now he's just a man doing his job, stripped of the rebellion which defines the character. So I imagine the episode would start with like, and now I'm going to be Davy Jones. And it'll be like, oh, this is so exciting. Like he's immortal. And then 20 years later, and he's just like really sensible. Like you don't want to see a sensible.
He's
Jack
like Bob Parr at the start of The Incredibles.
Precisely. So he's just doing his job, and the story, I think, would involve Jack discovering that his latest passenger to the afterworld is none other than Elizabeth Swan/Turner herself, who drowned at sea by accident, like tragic, and I've written down, cut down in the prime of her life. I don't know how old she would be 20 years after.
Oh yeah, it should be like 30 or something. It should be well past her prime.
And so this Jack sort of sees this as an excuse to fully grapple with his midlife crisis and become who he wishes he still was, right? And so Jack would finally decide to return to his scallywag ways and decides to cheat death and deliver Elizabeth back to Will in the land of the living. So it's like we get to see Jack be the Dutchman. We see that it doesn't work for him and it's ruined his what's so special about the character. And then we get to see him do what I think is a very crucial component of Jack Sparrow's character, which is do the right thing even though you're not expecting him to, right? The right thing being cheating death in this case and saving Elizabeth and taking her back to Will. So that's what I think. What if Jack stabbed the heart instead of Will would be.
And would this be like a musical or?
No, I'm sorry, I haven't written any songs for it. I'm surprised no one said what if Pirates of the Caribbean was a musical.
Well, what do you know what that would sound like?
That's true.
All right, what's the next one there we got?
So this one was suggested by Scott Curry on Facebook, and he said, what if Scar actually turned out to be a more effective and popular leader than Mufasa? And he actually expanded on this, and here's what he said. He said, I'm going to dismantle this. This is him, I think, speaking as Scar. I'm going to dismantle this archaic monarchist institution and transform all the lands the light touches into a democratic realm with meaningful representation for all species. Also, we're going to have a truth and reconciliation panel regarding the past crimes of hyenas because, they're just trying to survive like the rest of us. Hashtag Scarconda forever. And I think that is, a lot of these what if stories, including the actual ones from Marvel, are like exploring these, not plot holes, but like plot discrepancies or plot issues that people have had for years. And I think exploring like, what if Scar was democratically elected is like maybe a good, because, one of the big critiques of The Lion King these days is that it's like, weirdly in favor of like just no you're only good if you're assigned good when you're born into wealth.
Although I think maybe the Steve McQueen's prequel, we'll take a look at that.
That's a good point.
No, it's Barry Jenkins. Sorry.
I forgot about that completely.
They just recently in the last week have cast Mufasa and Taka, who's what Scars was called before he was named Scar, before he got the big fucking scar.
Doesn't Taka mean like garbage?
Yeah. All right, so this one comes to us from Ben Clark on Facebook. That's Ben Close, I believe, but he likes to spell his name in a fun way. Who said, what if Marty got sent back to December 25th, 0000? Because there is a moment in the original Back to the Future where he's skipping through the dates. It's how he ends up back in 1955, is because Doc is punching in a bunch of different dates. And so this one, I like that it's like, the thing could have malfunctioned and showed December 25th, 0 BC instead. So this is like one of those fun kind of ones. So this is what happened. So Marty would crash into the barn at the back of the inn, which is of course located in Hill Valley. So, and it's just as Jesus's mum comes to deliver the man himself. The innkeeper's like, well, I would have let you stay in the barn, but look what's just happened. So Jesus's mum is forced to give birth in the back of the DeLorean with Marty's assistance. They decide to name the baby after Marty, who normally gives a fake name, but since he's not talking to any McFly ancestors, he doesn't think to give a fake name. Due to his help, they name the baby Marty, and it's wrapped in his iconic orange puffer vest.
Nice.
Marty returns to the future, where he is heralded as the second coming of Christ due to his name, the way he dresses, and the fact that he appears out of nowhere in a DeLorean, which obviously is this massive part of historical.
Yeah, it's like part of the Bible now. Is like, but it's like they don't know what a DeLorean is, so they write it.
Yeah, it's a DMC DeLorean.
Yeah. That's written in the Bible as like something you could, like scholars maybe think was a DeLorean.
yeah. It's described as a spaceship, as an aircraft without any wings. Looks like it. Yeah,
that's so good.
Yeah, all right, that's mine.
Nice. Well, Zeke from Southeast England and Dr. Barrel, both on Discord, suggested both what if Airbud could talk and what if Airbuddies couldn't talk. So that was a funny one. I feel so patronising. I'm being patronising. And Tom Katsumi on Discord suggested, what if Kermit never got his memory back or found by the other Muppets in The Muppets Take Manhattan? Which, do you want to live in a world, Richard, where Kermit never got his memory back? Is that the world you want to live in?
No.
Will that play into 9/11 not happening? Because we find out in one of the straight-to-DVD Muppet movies that if Kermit wasn't born...
the Christmas one.
Yeah, the Twin Towers are still standing in 2002. So if he forgets pre-9/11, if he forgets who he is, does he still make 9/11 happen? It's these questions that keep me up at night. Zeke from South England also on Discord suggested, what if Anakin stopped Palpatine from killing Mace Windu? And I've expanded on this. So what if Anakin from Star Wars Revenge of the Sith stopped Palpatine from killing Samuel L. Jackson's Mace Windu? And this is one of those, a couple of these aren't the same template as what if, because a couple of these are like, I've gone into like real world ramifications instead of like a fictional story.
Yeah, I've got one that's entirely...
Yep, so let's say that most of Revenge of the Sith and Star Wars plays out mostly the same. The only difference is Mace Windu is like explicitly shown to survive being thrown out. Mace Windu been thrown out the window. Or he's not thrown out at all. Maybe Anakin saves him or whatever. What I think this would actually result in would be the live action Star Wars universe being resurrected a lot earlier than The Force Awakens, because I think they would go, we've got Samuel L. Jackson and he likes the role. He's got a purple lightsaber. So I think Samuel L. Jackson led Mace Windu trilogy would be peddled out in the following years after 2005 when Revenge of the Sith came out, depicting him as hiding away as one of the last Jedi. I could even see Samuel L. Jackson opting to direct a la Stallone and Rocky. Like, he really takes ownership of this.
Has he directed before?
I don't know, but I'm just creating a fictional world there where I get to say what happens.
No.
However, if a new Mace Windu movie came out every 2 to 3 years after Revenge of the Sith, this would clash with the Disney acquisition in 2012, and the Mace Windu series would be deemed as part of the Legends canon, causing a rift between Disney and the fans of the Windu series and Jackson himself, leading Jackson to drop out of his role as Nick Fury in the MCU, which is owned by Disney, in protest. He would be like, no, you're decanonizing. I was going to do a voice, but I probably shouldn't. But he'd get mad at them decanonizing his Mace Windu movies and be like, well, I'm not going to be Nick Fury then. And then we wouldn't have Nick Fury in the MCU, and I don't know what happens after that, but that's my idea.
Would the fans of the Mace Windu trilogy in this universe, would they call themselves Windies?
Absolutely. Windy fans. Windus.
Yeah.
Mace heads.
Indiana Jones.
Yeah, so that is what if Anakin stopped Palpatine killing Mace Windu. Rob T on the Discord suggested what if Anne Lewis became RoboCop, referring to a franchise I only really remember feeling sad about when we recorded the episode on it. So I'm just gonna read what his comment says verbatim, because it's very good. And Rob T also shared a link to like a what if Mad Max story that he wrote in the Discord as well. So here's what he's written for what if Anne Lewis became RoboCop instead of Alex Murphy. So he says, after new boy Alex Murphy is taken out by the gang, they spot Lewis, maiming her in much the same way as Murphy from the original film. Murphy dies at the scene before backup arrives, and Lewis is the one used as the basis of RoboCop. Dick Jones, furious that he has been usurped not only by the success of the program, but the public's revulsion at the use of a woman for such a purpose, is forced to attempt to terminate the project by having RoboCop defeated on the street, while Bob Morton and his team try to turn the public perception around. After Jones' attempted assassination of assassination of Morton is foiled, Jones is fired and becomes unhinged, forcing Morton's team to meld him neurally with ED-209. I'm hoping you're remembering RoboCop, because I don't remember any of these
None of this at all is ringing any bells.
Lewis, meanwhile, has flashes of her former life and becomes aware that the only way to solve her plight is to prove OCP corrupt and remove them. She gains evidence of Jones using criminals to manipulate the OCP contract on law enforcement, forcing the old man to make a deal with the devil in the newly cyborg Jones, who kills Bo Dicker and his gang to prevent them from being used as witnesses. In the final showdown, RoboCop is able to transmit the evidence, but it remains unclear if she would survive after she finally destroys Jones. So thank you for that very extensive comment, Rob, and I'm sorry I don't quite remember RoboCop to be able to expand on it anymore. But thank you for your comment.
Yeah. All right, I guess it's my turn.
Mm-hmm.
So my next one is, what if Harry Potter was sorted into Slytherin? So this is one that it's such a good suggestion, and it's another one of those, like, if they were making a what if Harry Potter, this would absolutely be one.
This was suggested by Scott Curry on Facebook, by the way.
Oh yes, thank you. So, but it's one that I'm probably not the best person to do it, but it felt it felt like one of the ones that should be expanded upon. So I had a few like different. I've written one, but then there was also a few other like different ideas I had. So
yeah, cool.
Harry's very impressionable at the start of that first book and movie, and he only really dislikes Draco because he's told to by Ron.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that had he sat with Draco on the train rather than Ron, he absolutely would have, like hated the Gryffindors. Like he would have gone and be like, yeah, Gryffindors all stuck up, and I don't know necessarily he would have looked down on Ron too much, having come from like, relative poverty himself, but I think that a lot of Gryffindor does come from privilege, and I think that, they would play into that aspect of him to bring on their side. So I think then, him joining Slytherin, the Slytherins, probably would have gravitated towards the famous Harry Potter, and I think Draco wouldn't have enjoyed the status he, thinks he rightly deserves and has in the books and the movies anyway. And so I think we still would have had quite a strong Draco-Harry rivalry, but it would have been exacerbated by being in the same house, if anything.
And Ron's just not a character in the book.
Yeah. But then without Ron and Hermione, Harry wouldn't stumble upon Fluffy and wouldn't stop Quirrell/Voldemort from getting the stone. But I think due to Dumbledore having cast spells on it in the Mirror of Erised, nothing much would, like, Voldemort wouldn't really get much more power out of it. Mm-hmm. But obviously this would end when, during the Triwizard Tournament, Harry wouldn't receive any help and would die. So that's where the story ends.
So I like that. I like how this version acknowledges the Osh nightmare that the Triwizard Tournament is, and why would a school put this on for its students where they could actually die if not given proper help? I think Goblet of Fire is so stupid for that reason. Like,
it's my favorite one.
But they could so clearly just get killed really easily, and the rest of the books are about the teachers trying to make sure that the kids don't get killed. Here's the Triwizard Tournament.
So Sirius would die in the third one because he wouldn't be friends with Hermione to use the Time Turner. the Order of the Phoenix wouldn't come back. Jess debunked this, but I said that because without the Marauders map, because he's not friends with Fred and George, Peter Pettigrew wouldn't have revealed his true self and brought Voldemort back to life. But then she said that he probably still would have just run off and done it on the side. But yeah, I mean, there's a few different ways but yeah, he'd just fucking die in the Triwizard Tournament in the Goblet of Fire.
Nice. Cool. Over on Twitter at
now
Tyler.
time for some silly ones. Let's do a fun one. Everybody say smelly undies. Do you remember that guy?
Yeah.
Remember that one guy that would take all the photos?
The school photographer.
I think I've found like that's actually like write in and let us know. But the school photographer cliche of just being like a fucking tool, and calling everyone weird names is like a universal constant. It's not just this one dude, because there is definitely just like one dude in Christchurch that would do it, and he'd be like, "All right, Captain Cornflake, you're up there in the front." And there was this one, because the two tallest people in our class, they get to stand together. One was like this jock, real tall, kind of lanky but kind of buff guy, and the other one was this like quite overweight girl. And the guy was like, "All right, spaghetti meatball, you guys are up at the back."
God,
and I was like, I cannot believe he said that. Yeah, but then he'd always be like, "All right, now, all right, everyone say cheese," and they'd be like, "All right, everyone, now we'll do a silly one. Everyone say crusty undies," which is also a horrific thing to get a group of kids to say. But yeah, let us know if the the school photographer guy was also a massive tool where you're from.
I remember him making us say bogies are delicious. That was the one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, at Tyler_me, Tyler CA on Twitter. This is our friend Tyler Brayley. He tweeted, "What if Metallica broke up at the end of Some Kind of Monster?" And then added, "If you haven't seen it or don't give a shit about Metallica, please disregard." Okay, I will disregard. And we also got Vinny Unit 1 Horny Jail Warden on Discord. Hey Vincent, he said, "What if there was a rule that said a dog can't play basketball?" So we're getting a lot of our earbud what ifs in here. A franchise in dire need of what ifs. But the next one that I want to expand upon is Mike Noyes on Discord said, "What if the canister of dino DNA that Newman stole in Jurassic Park actually played out as an interesting subplot in later films?" And so I've reworded this into what the episode would be called instead of that quite snarky critical take, which is, what if the canister of dino DNA, what if Nedry actually managed to escape with the dino DNA, right? Yeah. So, first of all, I agree, Mike. It is crazy that this is in the 5 preceding films has not been. Like, no one's done anything with the corporate espionage plot of the first Jurassic Park
I think
film.
you use proceeding wrong there.
I apologize. Kill me now.
Subsequent films.
Right.
But although, yeah, because and it is interesting because Spielberg has said, I put that in there because I assumed that's what they would want for a sequel. And then they wrote a fucking Godzilla ripoff instead. Yeah. But although the guy, the buyer, is coming back in Dominion. Dodgson.
We got Dodgson here,
but played by a different person.
Oh,
because
what's the point of bringing him back then?
Well, they wanted to bring back the character, but the actor is a pedophile, so they
good.
They decided not to get him out of prison.
Okay, we'll get you out of prison, but just for this role, okay?
And you have to promise not to be a pedophile.
Okay, so following just the logic of what Dennis Nedry was actually trying to do, if he managed to survive and escape Jurassic Park, he would have completed his sale with Dodgson, and the proprietary dinosaur formula would have leaked to competitors, creating a movie I've dubbed Jurassic Parks. Or Jurassic Worlds, depending on what you want to do.
Jurassic Park, baby.
And I think this would actually lead into Jurassic World Dominion in a much nicer way, as instead of an onslaught of dinosaurs from like one source, it's like there are now multiple parks. Say there's multiple parks around America where dinosaurs can now escape from, and maybe there's some kind of terrorism of releasing the dinosaurs on the world, or maybe it all goes wrong predictably at the same time. This feels like the second best idea for a Jurassic Park movie. And they've made 5 others without doing this idea yet.
Yeah. So it actually turns out Cameron Thor, who plays Dodgson in the original film, is probably going to get out of prison around the same time Jurassic World Dominion comes out.
Why not just do it? We need to learn to separate the art from the artist.
Like, he might be able to go to the premiere.
I love that, calling it art. Like, it's like... like his role as Dodgson was like high art.
Yeah. He's apparently going to be the main antagonist in Dominion, which is interesting.
It feels like you can just make a new character for that. I don't know.
Well, like, shouldn't the dinosaurs be the main antagonist? Okay, what if... this is from Josh Monson from Pop Culture on Discord. He says, what if Beethoven was a pit bull? And Craig actually expanded, not Josh. So Craig says, imagine the scene. The kid is trying to sleep to keep the pit bull a secret, but it keeps making noise. Charles Grodin bursts into the kid's room a split second after the kid throws the blanket over Pitbull and demands to know what the noise was. The kid says, nothing, Dad, but then we hear Mr. Worldwide from under the blanket.
I love this joke, but I will say, I could see something like the opposite of the Jaws effect happening if Beethoven was a pitbull. Like, it's a pitbull, and therefore the like public's perception of pitbulls is softened, and we don't have this like stigma against pitbulls now. Maybe that could be a possibility.
G. Butchold, Jabbarkold, on Discord said, what if Rocky died and Apollo Creed became the focus of the films from that point on? Obviously reference to Rocky 4, which we covered last week on the podcast, along with all the other Rocky movies. Okay, so I've said Ivan Drago arrives in America as a new boxer and challenges Balboa to a match to prove his strength. In this one, Balboa is still very much riding the high of 3. He thinks he's completely infallible. He takes the challenge immediately without properly training, and it ends with his death in the ring. Apollo Creed is shattered to his very core, thinking that he could have ended the fight. He challenges Drago himself. Creed becomes the laughingstock of the world as this over-the-hill boxer taking on a man who just killed the heavyweight champion of the world. Through various training montages, he gets his strength and speed back up. In the final match, it becomes clear that it wasn't enough. With Creed up on the ropes, standing upright but barely conscious, Duke throws in the towel, realizing there is more to life than winning a boxing match. Because of this, the Cold War does not end, and to this day, Germany is divided into East and West. In real life.
Yeah.
Decades later, a film called Creed is released. It's about an aging Apollo Creed suffering from a degenerative brain disease, something not dissimilar to Parkinson's. It's a man known for once being the most powerful man in the world, dealing with his own mortality. He is visited by a son born of a love affair who wants to be a boxer and who wants to get to know his father before he passes away. With Apollo's help, Creed Jr. is able to achieve the title of heavyweight champion of the world because, as Apollo Creed sees the story in the first movie of a new franchise, you always win the boxing match.
I love it. Very nice.
Yeah. Do you like the Cold War never ended in real life?
Yeah. So, like, therefore, in real life, Rocky 4 actually did influence the end of the Cold War.
I think it absolutely did.
Okay. Dante on Discord said, "What if Alfred was a Kiwi?" And I included this because I thought we could do some fun Alfred lines in our accents, just to satiate this this request. So let me pull up the monologue he does in the
I
Dark
failed
Knight
you, Master Wayne.
We got it in a Kiwi accent.
So he'd be like, the bandit had been a tangerine.
Yeah, he was a tangerine. I'm going to look at Alfred Tangerine monologue.
The Tangarine Knight is one of the funniest YouTube videos I've ever seen. That and the one of the guy doing Akinator for his waifu. Those are my 2 favorite YouTube videos. There'll be a link to them in the show notes. Says the guy who doesn't do the show notes.
All right, here's the quote in a New Zealand accent. With respect, Master Wayne, perhaps this is a man you don't fully understand
What is this voice
either.
you're doing? What is this?
Is Rhys Darby.
What the fuck is this?
Do you want to do Rhys Darby or do you want me to do Invercargill?
Yeah, dude. There we go.
A long time ago, I was in Burma with me friends and I, working for the local government. They were trying to buy the loyalty of tribal leaders by bribing them with precious stones. But their caravans were being raided in a forest north of Rangoon by a bandit. So we went looking for the stones, but in 6 months we never met anyone who had traded with them. One day I saw a child playing with the ruby the size of a tangerine, the size of a kiwi fruit. The bandit had been throwing the stones away. And so why steal them? Well, because he thought it was good sport. Because some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned with, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn. There you go. That is What If Alfred Was a Kiwi. And on this similar note, both Scott Curry on Facebook and Mike Noyes on Discord suggested what if Batman and Superman's mothers had different first names, or what if Batman never learned Superman's mum was also named Martha, which is like an obvious, silly, like, you know, making fun of the movie. That is a very interesting what if, though, because it means Batman would kill Superman in that moment. So,
and then he'd be fucked when Doomsday comes.
Tom Katsumi on Discord suggested, what if the tablet from Night at the Museum got taken to Disneyland? I thought this was a great suggestion, because we haven't actually covered Night at the Museum on the podcast yet, but if you haven't seen Night at the Museum, all the like statues and stuff are brought to life because of a ancient Egyptian tablet. So this is something I could see happening like actually on Disney Plus, because Night at the Museum is actually owned by Disney now. And I found this out that I knew a revival was in the works, but I didn't know how far along it was. Do you know about this? It's a CGI animated Night at the Museum, Kamun-Ra Rises Again. So I don't have much else to say, just I could easily see a Night at Disneyland special get created in which the tablet brings all the Disneyland robotics characters to life. I'd rather see that as a scary thing. I don't think Disney Plus would. Maybe they'd have the sense of humor. No, probably not. They wouldn't want to like have like their brand recognition tarnished by a scary Mickey Mouse, I guess.
Yeah, you could do, or just visit the Hall of Presidents.
Oh, there you go. Make them fight.
Yeah.
Make them fuck.
What if your favorite president was a bottom?
Good news, he is. They all were.
So Dante quite smartly asked, what if the Jedi Council did grant Anakin the rank of Master? And then Zek from Southeast England quite dumbly asked, what if Anakin never became Vader?
That would be mean.
My apologies to Southeast England. The whole quadrant. So Dante actually expanded on it as well. Anakin is actually respected as a valuable member of the Jedi Order, so he doesn't get pushed away and into Palpy's arms like he does in the movie. Instead, he gets sent to kill Grievous instead of Obi-Wan. Palpy doesn't execute Order 66. The clones stay as the Republic's army. The Republic win the war, and Palpy is finally booted from office, officially ruining his plans. The galaxy is saved, and all Mace Windu had to do was stop being a dick to Anakin.
Again, if they do Star Wars What If, this will be the first fucking episode, right? Like, what if Anakin was granted rank of Master? Like, surely that's the first What If you come up with.
Yeah. All right. So Moltenello on Instagram asked a few, and I'm going to take one of them. So the first of all is a bit of a meme. Do you want to explain the background behind this?
So when you post something on Instagram these days, the first comment you get will just be like bots spamming the same question. And in this case, we got promoted on Reality Records. And it's just like, shut up. Shut up!
Yeah.
Stop telling me.
I think it's when you like do the hashtag podcast or something.
Yeah. So Maltinello began with "What if Popture promoted on Reality Records," which is very funny, and continued with jokes aside. This is a few of their ones. What if the Terminator got sent back in time to kill a PTSD-ridden John Rambo before he is a child? What if Will Smith played Neo in The Matrix? And the one that you've expanded upon, Richard, what if Iron Man turned out to be a box office disaster?
Okay, so Iron Man is a box office bomb, one of the biggest of all time. Tony Stark's cameo is removed from The Incredible Hulk, which was due to come out 6 weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
Plans to build a universe are put on hold until they have an Earth 1218 Iron Man-sized hit, Earth 1218 being our reality. 2009 comes and goes without Disney buying Marvel. Captain America comes out in late 2010, simply titled Captain America, not the first Avenger. It's not hugely successful, but outgrosses Iron Man. Meanwhile, Sony is working on rebooting Spider-Man. Kevin Feige signs on as a producer while his universe is losing traction, leaving Ike Perlmutter in charge. Without desperately trying to play catch-up and build their own universe, Sony takes more time developing their one and listens to the hashtag Donald for Spider-Man campaign. Donald Glover is cast as Spider-Man. Miles Morales is never created as a character.
Wow.
Donald Glover becomes an A-list actor and never makes Because the Internet after his first album, Camp, stopping Gambino from ever really hitting the mainstream. Over at Marvel, Perlmutter rushes an Avengers film into production with a lineup of Iron Man, Hulk, Cap, and Thor, who makes his debut in the film. The Netflix shows go ahead as they did in our universe, but are now folded into the ongoing film universe. The films are middling quality, but are continually churned out anyway, a la DC. There's no Guardians of the Galaxy in Phase 2, as they continually try and find the right safe choice to be, their big tentpole. The universe kind of just ends with a shrug after almost 10 years with no real hits.
Wow. That's great, man. I like that, how many threads you followed on that. I feel like that's something we haven't seen Marvel What If do quite yet. We've only seen like these isolated stories. We've yet to see sort of like the butterfly effect sort of, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. Nice. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
Lotographia, who on Twitter, who gave us a lot, but also David Ross on Facebook.
Lotographia.
Gave us a lot of ideas, I should say. These guys both suggested, what if Neo took both pills at the same time? Or what if Neo had only taken the other pill? Would there be a new chosen one? Both of us are probably not familiar enough with The Matrix, of which was maybe the most popular IP that had what ifs based around it. They were suggestion.
Yeah. I've seen the Matrix, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
I've only
same.
seen the first one.
Yeah, same.
But not in maybe like 15 years.
Yeah. So, and I don't know, I just thought the idea of Neo taking both pills at the same time was very funny, and is also a lyric from Robbie Williams' Rude Box, where he sings, "Take both pills, fuck the Matrix." So that's the answer to that question. You fuck the Matrix. And Lotographia on Twitter also asked, what if Avatar 2009 had left any kind of cultural impact, or any kind of impact on legacy or our culture? It was such a big thing at the time, but there's now not even a single meme. If there were to be a meme derived from Avatar 2009, what if would it be? And I think this is a really funny what if to propose, because it's like, can you please come up with a meme?
Yeah.
So, Richard, can you quickly come up with a meme based in Avatar? I reckon, like, something to do with the, like, hair sex tendrily thingies. That'd be a meme.
It'd be like when
your girl. Yeah, and for the final one that I'm going to expand upon, Vinny Unit 1, Horny Jail Warden on Discord suggested, what if that one Pixar animator didn't have a spare copy of Toy Story 2? Referring, of course, to this famous piece of trivia where during the production of Toy Story 2, a like faulty update or something started deleting...
someone accidentally ran the code. It's like a 3-digit thing. Keyboard shortcut that fucking wipes everything.
Yep, so they lost over half of Toy Story 2 that was made at the time, but luckily one of the animators had it backed up on her computer.
Because she was working from home after giving birth.
Yeah, and so they were able to save it. So, what if She didn't. What if she didn't back it up? So if Toy Story 2 got deleted, I could see Pixar either missing their deadline to hand in the film or producing like a rushed, lesser quality version of the film, which being their third film at the time, they'd only done Toy Story and A Bug's Life. I could see this event causing Pixar to fall out of like a very early defeat for Pixar, meaning that like if they fall out of favor with Disney and they aren't considered the gigantic, successful production company they are today. I think this could lead to two interesting possibilities. Circle 7, which was the cancelled Disney subsidiary, which was started in pretty bad faith to create Disney-owned sequels to Pixar properties, probably would have survived in this universe with their versions of Toy Story 3, Finding Nemo 2, and Monsters, Inc. Lost in Scaradise, actually coming to fruition for better or worse. I say for better or worse because the cancelled Toy Story 3, I think, is actually quite an interesting plot. Not better or worse than the movies we got.
That's
but it's
the
Buzz Lightyear gets
Buzz.
Buzz Lightyear gets recalled and they all have to go to Japan. There's no word, I don't think, on what Finding Nemo 2 would have been, but there is like somewhat of a synopsis on Monsters, Inc. Lost in Scaradise, I think. But the other option of what could happen now is that, and this is wider than Disney, is perhaps it's not about what Disney would grasp onto, but it's actually about a world without Pixar would allow for other animation companies to rise up and take the place of the industry leader, whether that be a Disney subsidiary or not. Which is why I think, Richard, if Toy Story 2 got deleted, Aardman Animations would have landed a lot more gigs in the early 2000s, and the likes of Wallace and Gromit and Shaun the Sheep would be far more universally beloved properties than they are now. They are loved now, but I'm talking like Mickey Mouse level of notoriety, and they would eventually be bought out by Disney. I think Disney would be like, well, you're the winner of it's because it's evolution, it's survival of the fittest, So Disney would buy them, ultimately resulting in Shaun the Sheep turning up in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and Wallace and Gromit joining your party in Kingdom Hearts 3. So that's what if. And speaking of Kingdom Hearts, you
can read this one because
we have Tim Tabor at 123 on Discord suggested a very long what if that I'm going to read out as like a thank you for putting in the effort, but I have no idea what you're talking about. He said, what if Marluxia, this may be spoilers if you're playing Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, or 3.
Chain of Memories.
Chain of Memories, it is too. The DS one that nobody played. What if Marluxia...
But it's still like important to the lore.
Yeah, it's still important to the... Kingdom Hearts is fucked up. What if Marluxia was successful in brainwashing Sora in Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories? This is what he's written. This is the changed timeline. Marluxia probably orders Sora to kill Donald and Goofy. Imagine knowing nothing about Kingdom Hearts. Going off Zexion's fate, we also probably see an Organization 13 civil war with several casualties. I suspect Demonix and Zigbar are the main victims, as they are shown to be the weaker flunky members of Kingdom Hearts 3. Not Demonix and Zigbar! As we learn in the reverse rebirth mode...
Demix.
Okay. As we learn in the reverse rebirth mode storyline around the same time, Sora was in the Realm of Darkness / Castle Oblivion, the main setting of Chain of Memories. Riku was in another part of the castle, dealing with Ansem, Seeker of Darkness's heart, attempting to reprocess his body, making him fall into darkness. It's possible, Richard, I don't want to get too wild, but it is possible, after seeing Sora fall, this might make him fall back into Ansem's control. Him being Riku, I think, in this context, if I can understand English correctly. This also likely means Mickey Mouse gets stranded in the Realm of Darkness. Mickey might be able to track down Aqua to make Riku come to his senses. Aqua snaps Riku out of it. Riku goes even more edgelord and guilty since he failed twice to Ansem's darkness, and Aqua informs Riku and Mickey of the fate of Terra and Ven. They may or may not put two and two together regarding apprentice Xehanort and Terra. Kairi might be able to use her Princess of Heart abilities to get the trio out of the Realm of Darkness. Aqua, Mickey, Riku, Zion, who doesn't need to sacrifice herself right away, but yeah, because Sora is fucked. Axel and Roxas might be enough to ambush Xemnas and break off Terra from Xenahort's heart procession. Sora probably takes Terra's place as one of the 13 darknesses. Marluxia probably completes the artificial Kingdom Hearts with the Sora puppet. Whoever survives the Org Civil War realizes that nobody's don't have hearts thing was a Xemnas lie. Marluxia could use the fake Kingdom Hearts to kill his Zehan Hort heart fragment, meaning Zehan Hort's KH3 scheme fails before it began. He might voluntarily free Sora at that point. Aqua and Terra get Ven out of the coma and revive the land of departure. Isn't it interesting reading something you don't understand and not knowing if this is brilliant or dog shit? You could be either.
All right, so this one was sent in to us by Richard from Cult Popture. Thank you, Richard.
Wait just a minute. What if Richard suggested his own what if to end the show on?
So I said, what if Jesse was killed by Tuco at the end of season 1 of Breaking Bad, something that famously almost happened, but due to the writer's strike and the chemistry between the two actors, it was held off. There actually is... Vince Gilligan did have his own answer to this, so I will say that and then do mine. So one of Gilligan's early ideas before the pilot was that Jesse Pinkman would get killed in season 1. Walt, so filled with rage with the drug dealer responsible, would go out for revenge. Walter would lock him up in a basement, torture him every day, removing his toes one by one and cauterizing the wound with a blowtorch so he wouldn't bleed out. Walter would give the drug lord a way out. A tripwire connected to a shotgun pointed at him would finally give him relief from the pain, but the drug lord, being so badass, would never take that option out. This would continue for weeks until Walter Jr. would discover him and try to help. The drug lord, realizing this was Walter's son, would pull the tripwire, killing them both. Obviously a horrible suggestion.
Yeah, it's really interesting hearing like brilliant writers' first ideas and being like, maybe everyone can be a brilliant writer.
Yeah. So, my version of events. Walt, having lost his connection to the world of drugs, continues to cook on his own, but is overcome with guilt. Jesse's death is reported on the news, whom Skylar recognizes as Walt's drug dealer, because if you remember in season 1, Walt says his connection to Jesse is that he sold him weed. She agrees to not tell Hank their connection, as Jesse's death was found to be at the scene of a drug deal gone wrong, and so to not, implicate Walt. After some ego bullshit, whatever, Walt decides he needs to keep going with what he's doing, now taking Combo, Badger, and Skinny Pete under his wing as his connection to the drug world. Similar to season 2, they're able to have a little network going for a while before one of them is robbed. With no one willing to get the money back, the gang dissolves. Walt, now sitting on a ridiculous amount of meth with nowhere to distribute it, turns to the cartels, offering to be their cook, and tries to cut a deal with them. Obviously, being a drug cartel, they're not going to cut a fair deal, so they kidnap him and force him to cook until he dies, similar to Jesse at the end of the series. When Walt goes missing, Hank and Skylar obviously lose their shit, and eventually would find Walt's location, finding the broken shell of a man cooking crystal meth for a cartel. Hank rescues Walt from his prison, and he is taken to a hospital where he dies surrounded by his family. Interesting.
So it's like a worse course of events, but leads to like a more fulfilling death. I don't know if it's a more fulfilling death for Walt, but yeah, no, that's cool. It is interesting to take something like Breaking Bad, which is such a protagonist-focused show, and be more like, what if it's an ensemble show almost? Like, what if everyone can become the main character? Yeah, it's a good idea. Cool. Well, hey, those were the best ones that we thought from our suggestions, but we can go through some honourable mentions here just to end the show on. Ones that I either we didn't feel like we could expand on, or just thought were interesting ideas. So why don't we just read them one at a time each, and maybe do some wacky commentary if we see fit. So do you want to go first?
All right, so what if the robots built the Matrix to reflect a different time period, like the Renaissance instead of 1999? That's from Magic 3 TV Pod on Twitter. That's a great suggestion, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's
and again, that's one that, like, if I had more knowledge of the Matrix, Yeah, but that's a cool idea. That like just making the Matrix a period piece.
If anything, 1999 is a bad time to set the Matrix because that's when people understand technology enough to be able to work it out and conceptualize what the Matrix is. Carlisle from those 2 times on Discord says, what if Truman decided to stay in the show as a participant, but now he knows everything is fake? Yep, that's an interesting idea. That's a fun idea.
Being close on Facebook, what if Sam wasn't trimming the verge when Gandalf was talking a good deal about a ring and a Dark Lord and something about the end of the world?
So this is a good idea, but I think the what if answer is like Sauron wins. Like, because Sam's the reason that Frodo isn't lost to the ring. It's just like, I thought about expanding on this one, but I thought the answer's just, yes, Sam's the unsung hero of Lord of the Rings, yeah. Like, he is the key to the whole thing, basically. Scott Curry on Facebook said, what if the courier delivery guy at the end of 7 couldn't find the address, so it's just returned to depot?
Like, again, this is one that's like, it's obviously a silly suggestion, but it would mean, like, it would completely ruin Kevin Spacey's plan.
Yeah, it's very tenuous plan that very easily could not work out.
Yeah. What if Michael's wife didn't die in The Godfather? That's from Joss Monson from Pop Culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he probably wouldn't become the Godfather. Luke Tourette's on Discord and Scott Dorr 11 on Instagram suggested, what if Marty McFly made his dad fall in love with him, / what if Marty fucked his mum and became his own dad?
What if
very
Marty
intriguing
McFly,
ideas.
Yeah, made his dad fall in love with him. I almost elaborated. I started to, and then I swapped it for the Birth of Christ one. At like half an hour before we started recording, because I just couldn't think of one of how, but it's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Lotographia on Twitter said, what if Groundhog Day happened on Thanksgiving?
It'd be called Thanksgiving. At Fred Jones fan on Twitter said, what if the mayor in Jaws, let them close the beaches? Yeah, I mean, you would lose a crucial component on what makes that film's logline so goddamn compelling, but you could do that.
Yeah. Admiral Whiskers from Stockholm on Discord says, what if Voldemort chose Neville instead of Harry as his adversary?
So, really interesting to bring Neville into this conversation because there is the whole, the classic, a lot of people think the original plan was that Neville was the chosen one. I know that's not what Admiral Whiskers is actually saying, but it is like, if there's a Harry Potter What If series, this has got to be one of the first ones. Either that classic one or this one. Because I think if Voldemort chose Neville instead of Harry as his adversary, I've misread it. I was thinking, what if Voldemort chose Neville instead of Draco as his ward? Because if Voldemort chooses Neville instead of Draco, I think Voldemort wins because I think Neville is actually the Allies' secret weapon. I know this isn't what
he's the Samwise Gamgee of Harry
Potter. Yeah. Zeke from Southeast England on Discord said, what if there were 2 rings to rule them all? Which I thought was definitely, again, another, I could see this being an actual episode of a What If show.
Mike Kevin on Twitter says, what if Dr. Grant cloned himself with a velociraptor to make himself a super son progeny?
Does this happen in the first movie or the second movie? How many Jurassic Park movies do we get before this
well, it was supposed to be the 4th one. The original plan for the 4th one was the dinosaur-human hybrids. So.
Yeah. And final honourable mention, Mike Noyes on Discord suggested, what if Charlton Heston never realised they blew it up? Which, again, he's being comical with his the way he's written it, but what if what's his name? Taylor. Is it Brent or Taylor? Didn't find the Statue of Liberty, and it's like that probably does drastically change if he never finds out it was Earth all along. We
wouldn't have had the Simpsons episode,
and the world wouldn't have been blown up in the second one. Yeah.
Well, that's all we've got time for here on the Popture podcast.
I think this was a fun episode. I really enjoyed doing this, and I think
someone animate the episodes.
yeah, exactly.
Someone script and animate, hire voice actors. and make one of these episodes.
I would love for people to get on the Discord and discuss this episode with us and sort of discuss either our ideas or pitch your own versions of other, or like this could be a fun. This could be its own podcast series. I think if we were that
absolutely,
kind of podcast,
it could.
It probably is. So yeah, thank you very much for listening, everybody. And as we said, you can hop on the Discord to discuss this episode with us. There is a link to that in the show notes, as well as a link to our Patreon, patreon.com/cultpopture.
And a link to those 2 YouTube videos I mentioned.
Yes, sure. If you want to send them to me, I'll chuck them in the show notes.
As well as be in there then.
It's all the social medias that you can find us on, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. We're Cult Popture everywhere. And yeah, we'll see you next week for the Chronicles of Riddick trilogy.
Yeah, I should watch those.
Yeah, you should. Cool.
Goodbye, everybody.
Okay, welcome along everybody to the post-credits scene. This is a segment at the end of each episode where if you donate $5 or more over at patreon.com/cultpopture, you get to give us something to talk about, and this is the post-credits scene. Wouldn't it be funny if this week's question was just like a what if, but they had to pay to submit it? Everyone else is doing it for free.
All right, this one comes to us from Vincent Busso in Germany. Dear boys, my dear boys. I live my life fueled by other people confirming my opinions, and since Richard is a big Fincher fan, I have high hopes for this one. Fight Club is a perfect movie in which every scene tightens the atmosphere and escalates the story flawlessly. The actors, the music, the editing, the pre-2000 CGI, it's all seamless, and Fincher is great as almost always. So, what do you think?
Sounds like it's a question for you, buddy. Doesn't sound like he's asking me.
Fight Club's an incredible movie. It's a fantastic movie, and it's one of those ones that it's become like people misread it, and I hope that's not what you're doing, Vincent. But
is Fight Club your favorite movie in a good way or a bad way?
yeah. But yeah, I would say though that I'm one of the rare people that thinks the book ending is better.
I like both endings. I don't know if I prefer one.
Yeah, I've never been in love with the ending. Have you actually read the book, or do you just know the ending?
Yeah, no, I've read the book. Yep.
Oh yeah,
a rare example of me reading a book.
I really like the book, and I think I prefer the book ending. I've never loved the end. Like I don't love the ending as much as people seem to.
I think I love it filmically, but not necessarily narratively. Like I love the Pixies song playing. I love the buildings exploding. I love how that looks visually, and I really like the line of dialogue. You met me at a very strange time in my life. I think that's really beautiful. But I understand why you might prefer the book ending.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know, Vincent, if you've read the book and what you think of how it can be. I also the way that he meets Tyler Durden in the book is it's a lot more like pretentious and kind of fits with the character of Tyler Durden, but I don't know how well it translates to screen. But that's really nice. But in the book, but also the Fight Club 2. Did you ever read that?
No, I'm somewhat aware of it.
I've got like the first 5 issues or something like that, and then I think I just didn't have any money to keep buying the issues, so I just never read any more of it. But apparently it was quite bad. But yeah, so there you go. That's my thoughts on Fight Club.